Thaliste Nemi Pantreftis, it's the only Greek I know. And welcome back to Mystara as we look at the first of the 3 Hollow World supplements, as well as the only Hollow World supplements, the Millennium Empire. The book showcases the most militaristic of the 3 Hollow World empires, as it pits ancient Greeks against ancient Egyptians and pre-Columbian Aztecs. While Hollow World died almost immediately after this book was published, with only the Millennian Scepter left in the line, the book does go into a lot of detail on the Millennian culture and the threats both within and without. So get ready to try and remember all those fraternity names you can think of, because I'm Mr. Welch and we're getting all philosophical talking about HWR3, the Millennian Empire. Though I'm covering this one first of the Hollow World books, it's actually the third one in the line behind the Nithian Empire and the Sons of Azka. It just happened to be the first one on my shelf when I was grabbing the next book to talk about. The Millennian Empire was written in 1992 by Anthony Herring, who was best known for his work on the Marvel Superheroes RPG. This is the last book in the HWR line, as TSR shifted its focus to Thunder Rift shortly thereafter. And I'll cover the Thunder Rift books when I can find them, don't worry. This is very much a standard gazetteer format with a 32-page player's guide and a 64-page DM's guide along with a full-color map attached to it. The Millennian Empire above ground was one of the big power players on the continent of Devonia after the Beastman invasion drove them out of what's now Karamikos around sometime about 1000 BC. 400 years later, the Phaeacians flee the empire and go back to the continent of Brune and make their own little empire there. The Millennians stay a powerful empire for several more centuries until they grow corrupt and lazy, allowing outside tribes to destroy them. To save the culture, immortals take the Millennians they viewed as the least corrupted and sent them into the Hollow World, and only trapped in the mindset of a much more heroic Millennian Empire. While they were well into the Iron Age above ground, now they're barely out of the Bronze Age. They've traded metal breastplates for leather armor and prefer the spear to the sword. The Millennians are a complete mishmash of almost every stereotype of ancient Greece. The main difference is it's a united nation rather than competing city-states. The emperor is elected, and he rules over 100 cities that provide the senators that run the day-to-day operations of the nation. The nation is very much like Athens more than Sparta. You're not going to find rabid military types coming from just one city in millennia. What you will find is philosophers almost on every street corner, along with artisans and slaves. The Millennian Empire stays true to the history of the nation that it's mimicking, and it is not politically correct at all. There is slavery in this book, as the empire is dependent on them. That's actually a plot point that the slaves are planning a massive revolt because of their mistreatment. But it doesn't sugarcoat the fact the nation is a slave-holding one. That's something you'll find as a constant across most of the Hollow World. The second thing, you'll immediately notice that women are not equal citizens in Millennia. They can't own land, they can't vote, they are second-class citizens. To make matters worse, the spell of preservation means this is permanent. The nation is never going to advance in their thinking because they're trapped at a single moment in their cultural development. That the nation is renowned for its philosophers and scientists, and they're trapped in a stagnant society, is one of the greatest ironies of the setting. The nation is sports-obsessed. It's actually a major part of their education that everyone who is physically able participate in one of their numerous national sports. Boxing, wrestling, running, really every single part of the decathlon that's present in the Millennian Empire. And they take their game seriously. I mean, the penalty for cheating includes execution serious. The nation is crazy for sports, and every one of its 100 cities has some sort of sports facilities, and some of the best athletes can make a living just competing. The nation is highly stratified, with only land-owning men having any formal social rank. The most common rank is commoner, which can't vote but still has to pay taxes. If you're a landowner that happens to possess XY chromosomes, then you are called a citizen. These are further divided by your job, namely between artists, lawyers, and merchants. Above them, socially, are the high-ranking members of the military and the government. Despite what you'd think after watching 300, soldiers are commoners and not considered true citizens. The highest ranks in the Millennian Empire are for the emperor or the senators. The emperor is elected by the Senate and serves until death. And if he proves to be unpopular, they tend to hurry that death on a little bit faster. Millennians just don't do impeachment. Now, the empire is vastly wealthy. It's extremely fertile, and the military is only matched by the other rival empires. Because of this, even its poorest members are well fed and taken care of. They're much more advanced than the Nithians or the Azkans, both militarily and scientifically. While wizards and clerics are extremely rare in the Hollow World, in Millennia they serve for the good of the people rather than at the whim of the government. One of the advantages they have is they're preserved at the height of their power. Their military is efficient and their nation is prosperous. The only real threat to them is their own internal politics. There are numerous secret societies in the Empire, nowhere near as bad as Glantry, but the ones that are active are serious threats. A group called the Cleonites is arranging a massive slave revolt, and since slaves are largely overlooked as a threat, there's a very good chance this revolt will be catastrophic. catastrophic. Another group wants to replace the emperor with the traditional city-states, like ancient Greece was. However, this would splinter a thriving nation and remove any unity it has, leaving it vulnerable to conquest by millennia's numerous enemies. The Cult of Zargos, not Zargon, is an evil cult that wants to destroy the Red Sun. This would be a very bad idea, and they come off as a bit cartoonish in their goals. They play a major role in the Millennian Scepter adventure that I've already talked about, but their plan also backfires badly there. The last of the major schemes is the Cult of Matira, who wants to open up the rights of women in the Empire. They're doing this through magical influence. The problem is that numerous senators are becoming suspicious, as one after another of the senators starts changing their minds out of nowhere. The major problem with this plot is it's extremely dependent on charm person and similar magics, and it is a very long-running plot where one stray dispel magic spell destroys your entire plot and exposes you as the traitors. The books themselves are pretty crowded because they're trying to include a lot of information into a hard page count. It is a dual column book instead of a triple column book like some of the other gazetteers, and it has some really wide margins to take up even more space. So this was probably not a 64-page book if you put it into true gazetteer formatting. Some of the sections, like the skills section, seem overly long because a lot of the information was covered by the Hollow World box set. It gives you specialists, which were an attempt to work 2nd edition kits into Beckme, but those are all just variant clerics with just one exception. Half the DM's book is devoted to 3 short adventures and some new monsters. The adventures obviously have a strong mythic Greek feel, but it also feels like a lot of padding as it reduces the space available to talk about NPCs or other locations inside the Empire. 5 more pages are devoted to Millennian artifacts, which seem to be strange because they are mostly behind the scenes that the players will never encounter. Adventuring in the Hollow World is a neat experience because it's such an alien environment. Playing someone in the Hollow World is another thing entirely. Unless you're taking a serious XP penalty to get rid of the limitations on what you can use or wear, you're going to be stuck playing a hoplite with a shield and spear. You don't even get cool bronze armor because you're stuck with leather. There's probably a reason why the Hollow World Adventure trilogy imported characters from the surface. It's not hard to find the Millennian Empire. There's a local game store around here called Nan's Books and Comics that still has a few in shrink wrap. They wanted $25 for them. If you're in Houston, you want to go check them out. If you want the PDF, it's $5 as normal. This is not a book that was in demand. If you want the map, grab the physical copy. Doesn't cost that much. It is a nice map. The book's also a nice read, if nothing else. That's the Millennian Empire. It's ancient Greece with the serial numbers barely scrubbed off. It has all the problems of the Hollow World if you want to play there, mainly with the very serious restrictions on what you can play due to limitations on magic users and clerics, while other classes have to deal with the cultural penalties and that restrict you into certain weapons and armor, so you're just stuck with spears and shields. If you want to play a hoplite, great, but if you want to have a bronze chestplate, you've got a problem. That's a flaw of the setting, but not this book. Another problem that you might have with this book, especially if you are playing it in 5th edition or playing it at current times, some people do not like settings where women are second-class citizens. Even if it's culturally accurate, because this book is obviously based off a time where women weren't considered equals. And some of the same people might give you problems because this book does have a lot of slaves, and some of the slaves are not Caucasians. It's historically accurate, and the Nithians and the Azkans both take slaves as well. Just saying, some players today have a chip on their shoulders because they cannot handle mature themes that were commonly found throughout history. Don't let those players ruin the fun for the rest of everyone else. So next week I'm knocking out the next book from the Hollow World source books, The Nithian Empire. That's ancient Egypt with pyramids and mummies galore. Once I knock out the Hollow World source book, I'm going to talk about the revised Trugan book I helped create that fixes the enormous amount of problems that gazetteer had. Then Into the Immortals, and then after that I'm working on the massive task of trying to figure out how to incorporate the Known World, Savage Coast, Serpent Peninsula, Spirit World, and Good Kingdom into a single cohesive setting. Too many books in the Mystara world were standalone books that either didn't reference other nations or contradicted future lore. So I'm going to try to hammer that out. But first, pharaohs. So until next time, tap a keg of brew.